Konnichiwa.
Is history in the making, and we want you to be part of it.
That's a given.
We're talking about people who are changing the game.
You guys have run a tight ship here. Oh my gosh.
The rock star sitting here.
I can't even describe it.
Talking about actual business.
Two beings at the top of their professions. Lightning quick movements.
Changing the
Rock star sitting here. It's just started.
Welcome back to the Real Value Podcast, the podcast about creating as much value as you can with the short time we have. Good morning, my friends. My name is Blaine Feyen, founder of the Coaching Academy, chief evangelist at True Footage, host of the Playing Big podcast, and your host for this and every single episode of the always sponsor-free Real Value Podcast. And of course, my friends, hoping the sound of my voice finds you happy, healthy, prosperous, and of course, profitable. It is mid-December in 2022, and everyone listening to this episode, well, you know the deal. Interest rates have pretty much doubled. The lending market has been more or less crushed, or at least suppressed for the time being, which means that the real estate appraisal and title and home inspections, real estate sales, several other industries kind of revolving around real estate have been greatly affected. Now, if you're an appraiser listening to this show, well, then you have likely experienced something of a decline in orders, lending orders, over the last few months, as most of the lenders and AMCs are reporting anywhere from, say, 50% decline to upwards of 80, 85% or more, depending on the client base and business mix that those lenders and AMCs have. Now, of course, if you're an appraiser, depending on your business mix, your business might be following the same trend. So, what is business mix? Why does it matter? Well, business mix simply refers to the different types of clients a business works with, as well as the types of, say, products or services that you might offer. Most appraisers, the vast majority roaming the streets of the U.S. today, have a heavy lender-biased business mix, meaning they only do primarily lending-type appraisals for things like refinances and home equity loans and purchases and so on. Now, if that's you, you're likely seeing some dips in your business. And of course, shameless plug here, many of our coaching students are not seeing that same dip, depending on how long they've been with us and how much of my advice they take, because many of them have focused heavily on what we often refer to as direct lender business, relationship business, as well as a heavy emphasis on relationship building and becoming the recognized go-to authority in their market by doing things like office talks and CE classes and speaking events and webinars and private Facebook groups for realtors and lenders and so on and so on and so on. I mean, it's all stuff we teach and coach on. And those who take that advice and follow it, we wouldn't do it if we didn't get that result in that transformation. But we see those who are following that advice, they are reaping the benefits. Is it short-term? No, it's long-term stuff, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months of consistent effort, and all of a sudden you see the business. And there are a bunch of people out there who can talk to this process, can speak to it and say, that's exactly what we did and here are the benefits. Those who haven't followed it, well, unfortunately, sad to say, many are suffering today. And not only do those types of activities, all the ones that I just mentioned, lead to an increase in business of the non-lending type, say divorce and estate, date of death, cash sales, pre-listings, you name it. But at the more advanced levels of this strategy, and depending on your message and your skills, you will find yourself being promoted to more and better lending clients by your raving fans. So it works across the board. Sometimes I get kind of people throwing up objections like, oh, Blaine, I don't want to do office talks and I don't want to, mingle with realtors and do all this networking crap because then it's just like one-off, non-lending, private type appraisal work and I don't want to do that, which I guess I understand, although we're going to talk about diversifying your product mix. But I guess I get it. But that's not the only thing that type of activity leads to. Those things, which we talk about all the time, the networking, the putting on classes, CE classes and webinars and creating content, being the go-to authority in your market, it's not just for the non-lending side of the business. It does wonders for that side. But when you do it well, it also does wonders, amazing wonders for pulling you into lending relationships because lenders want to work with the go-to authority in their markets as well. And if you've been listening to this show for more than, say, 3 episodes, you'll know that I harp on the value add part of life and business ad nauseum over and over and over almost every episode. If you're not adding value above and beyond the cost of your product or your service, you'll always be subject to the market forces that seek to commoditize everything. It is the nature of free markets to always create pressure to do things better, faster, cheaper, and with a better user or buyer experience. Does it always succeed? No, I never said that. But it is the direction. There's always market forces and pressure to make things faster, cheaper, better, and with a better user or buyer experience. And the real estate, lending, and appraisal businesses are no different. The buyers of services want better, faster, cheaper, and a better experience. Are flat screen TVs more expensive today than they were 20 years ago or less expensive? Do they have better technology in them today or worse technology today? Is the picture quality superior today or is it inferior? Now, you could throw up some anecdotes to counter the answers to all of those that you know I'm going for. But the reality is the vast majority of flat screen TV. You can buy a 65-inch flat screen TV today with 4K technology. Heck, they're coming out some with 8K technology, meaning the picture is better, for roughly the same cost of what a 32-inch flat screen with 1080p resolution was 15 or 20 years ago. The cost has gone down as the technology and production capabilities have increased, as the increase in computer chips, the number of processors on each chip, which is in the billions now, have increased, and we've figured things out. The natural pressure of free markets is to always be doing things better, faster, cheaper, and with a better user or buyer experience. And when the market doesn't get all of those things, what do? Well, they settle simply usually for cheaper and faster. Not always, but the vast majority, which is what a big portion of the appraisal business has gone to, cheaper and faster. Appraisers can complain all they want about pricing pressure. We talk about it on the show all the time. By the way, complaining gets you nothing. While you're wasting your time complaining on Facebook to a group that has no capability whatsoever of making those changes for you, somebody else is out there getting the business. So appraisers can complain all they want about this, but without any meaningful differentiation, without any meaningful action, many appraisers cannot explain why they charge what they charge beyond saying that it's the going rate. Well, as soon as the going rate changes, i.e. supply and demand, well, there goes your whole marketing and pricing strategy, which is right now the vast majority of appraisers, especially if you do primarily AMC work. You have realized you are persona non grata in many cases. You are nobody to them. Friends, I have a long list of topics slated for this podcast through the end of the year and through the first quarter and into the second quarter of next year. However, what I always try to do is I try to take a pulse each week of where people and the markets are, and then I customize the show to what I think people need to hear at that time, regardless of the list of topics I have. Some topics just are not appropriate for the time. The markets have shifted, and so have my topics and my topic list, because I don't think you need me to talk about you digging into your P&Ls right now or funding your survival accounts. It would fall on deaf ears. If you haven't followed my advice over the last 5 years and funded your survival account with 6 to 18 months of business and personal expenses, well, you're certainly not going to do it right now. We are in the times that a survival account is designed for. That's why we've talked about it for the last 5 years. Got to do it, got to do it, got to do it. Well, if you didn't do it, you might be suffering a little bit. I see the forum comments about some of you who haven't had orders in weeks, or that your order volume is down 80 to 90%, and that you're thinking about getting a part-time job or starting a side hustle. Now, I'm not going to weigh in on whether I think those are good ideas or not, because I don't know everyone's individual situations. And I know there's a wide spectrum. Everybody's different. Some are just getting into the business. They haven't had time to maybe build a survival account or build up a following, build up an audience, and build up a client list. And I'm all for whatever someone needs to do to survive and fight again another day. And if that means a side hustle or a part-time job or whatever, I get it. What I am going to weigh in on in this episode is what every single appraiser, every single agent, every single lender, and really every other business, in my opinion, should be doing right now. I think businesses should be doing this in good times and dark times, by the way, and I teach and coach on that every single day. But it's times and markets like the current one that highlight just how important these things are. I will also say that I know very well an extremely small percentage of you will actually do any of these things. So to a large extent, I am speaking to the 1%ers or the 5%ers or less that will actually step up and do something. Some of you are just paralyzed and frozen. It's, analysis paralysis or just plain fear. Like, I hear it, it resonates with me, but I can't do anything. Being really good at the thing you're selling is expected. Nobody expects you to be horrible at the thing you're selling. Those of you who are using this time to dive into learning more and getting more knowledge and designations and just, essentially getting better at what you do, well, congratulations. Decent use of your time for sure. I will never tell you to not expand your knowledge and your expertise in your field. I will never tell you to not take courses. But being really good at what you do, friends, is expected. We talk all this time on the show about differentiation. The market does not differentiate between you and the next person down the street who can essentially sell them the same product. Now, you might argue, oh, we're so much better, and I have all these letters after my name, and I do this and I do that. The market doesn't really care, because being really good at what you do is expected. And the perception in the market is people will go with either the lowest cost or the lowest cost and highest quality that they think they can get away with. So if you think that taking some classes and getting some new letters after your name is going to open the floodgates of business, I hate to say this yet again. It's so boring, but it won't. You know the saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, how will they know how much you care and therefore how much you know if you're not the most well-known leader in your market, if you're not the go-to authority, if you're not out in your market all the time? You just expect people to automatically and unquestionably grant you some type of unwavering respect because you have some extra letters after your name. Oh, I took this class and I have this certification. No, they don't care. Why? Because it's expected. They think everybody goes through that, or they think nobody goes through it. The first thing I think you need to do in markets like this is to get out in your market and look for opportunities to become known. But Blaine, how's that going to earn me an appraisal fee? It's not. Well, then how am I going to pay my bills? I don't know. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about you. Your need to just pay your bills all the time is what led to the situation that you might be in right now, needing money today, which I don't mean to speak disrespectfully about. I'm not dogging you for it. But those of you listening that just need to go sell something today and put $300 or $400 or $500 in your pocket, this might not be the show for you, because you need a little bit of runway to take advantage of some of the things I talk about. I could do a show. Maybe next week I'll do that. I could do a show where I say top 10 things you could do today to put $500 in your pocket this week. Maybe that's what I'll do. But it's usually not my thing, because it smacks of like street selling and busking and, oh, grab your guitar, go sit in the subway, play something and get some change. No, I'm helping people build long-term value businesses. And so if you're interested in that and you think there's some value in that, by the way, we already know from getting the results we've gotten over the last decade or more, that is the way to go. The highest profit businesses, the businesses who are not struggling through this economy, are the ones who have put these things into play. You've got to get out into your market and look for opportunities to become known. You have to build an audience. Look for every opportunity to speak at real estate related events, on Facebook groups, clubhouse chats, wherever you can get your name, your voice, and your teachable point of view out to the world in such a way that gets you noticed in a good way. You have to build an audience. There are lots of appraisers out there who have gotten noticed, by the way, but for all the wrong reasons, for being absolutely arrogant jerks to the very people who make the market move. It is not unique to the appraisal industry, by the way, but it is very prominent in it. And it's the attitude that appraisers are in some way superior to the agents and lenders that create the business appraisers have coming into their offices. It is an industry who generally has disdain for the very people creating their livelihood. I've personally never really understood it, but maybe that's because I was an agent as well as a lender in my past, not to mention built several other businesses in totally unrelated markets. Grocery store business, mechanical contracting, martial arts, so on and so forth. You can't have a disdain for the people who bring you business and want to pay you. You just can't. It's a law of nature. What you despise and disdain will move away from you. It will shrink, wither, and die. You have to respect where your blessings come from. And if you have no respect for that direction and the people and the process and the business where your blessings flow, the flow will stop. It'll wither and die. It'll go in the direction that it is respected. Get out in your market, friends. Become the most well-known expert in your field and industry, not to mention the most helpful and friendly expert in your field. Don't charge people for talks and classes. Do it for free. That's just my opinion. If I was coaching you, I would tell you, if you asked me, Blaine, should I charge for my classes? I know some great appraisers who put on classes and they charge for them. Okay, that's part of their business model. I don't agree with it. I think they could do much better by not. And by the way, the clients of those appraisers who do that happily pay. There are lots of clients out there who will happily pay. I'm just saying, I think it's a short-term strategy. It's a short-term win. It's a long-term loss. Don't charge people for your talks and classes. Give away your knowledge for free. It's part of a content strategy. Don't make people jump through hoops to get some of your knowledge and experience. Share it freely and with joy and see what happens over time. This first suggestion, by the way, will not get business, once again, pouring in this week to pay your electric bill. So if you're just listening for tips and tricks to get business coming in today, you might be disappointed. Tune in maybe next week. Almost nothing I teach is for today business. I mean, I could teach you, I could say, okay, here's the script to use. Here's what you'll do to call around to banks and AMCs. You might just shake the bushes enough and get an order. But that's not money in your pocket today because they're not going to pay you for minimum 1 week to 60 days. So almost nothing I teach is for today business. It's for tomorrow wealth and longevity. The vast majority of people in the three industries we coach in, appraisal, real estate, and lending, tend to go about things with a very short-term mentality. Good people just head down, not long-term vision. They want now business and they don't have time for the long-term business building stuff. That is until they don't have any of that easy come, easy go business. Get out in your market. You have to build an audience. The next suggestion for how to use your time during the current market slowdown is to sit down and develop some classes for your market. This ties into the first suggestion. Get out in your market and look for opportunities. Well, you can also create some opportunities. Folks, we have been in harvest mode for 10 years or more, and very few have been in seed planting mode. Those are the two primary seasons. And when you never plant any seeds, you have no harvest in the fall. We are in seed planting season, friends. All of you are still looking for harvest, but now you're going over fields that have been plowed under. They've been over-harvested. And now you're running into people. Your foreheads are smacking other appraisers, searching the ground for harvest. Where is it? It's gone. No, this is seed planting season. This is the time to be creating content, getting out in your market, meeting agents and lenders, and asking them, how can we help your business? But Blaine, how can I take all that time? It's going to cost me and I don't have any money. Yeah, you don't have any money coming in now. Dip into your savings, pay your bills, take a month off, and just get out into your market. Make this seed planting, prospecting season. Call your state, find out what it takes to create a Con Ed class. 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour class. We've all done it, a bunch of us. We talk about it and teach it in our coaching program. It's a very, very valuable. One, you can charge for the classes. We don't. We offer them for free, which is a huge draw. But it does make you more bankable. It's a value add. Get your course certified as either legal or an elective Con Ed class and market it to agents and lenders as a content provider. Ask your market what their most pressing challenges and issues are, and then create a short course to help solve or at least help with that challenge. Go ahead, take some extra courses and get smarter. Take some McKissick classes, for sure. But then put your big boy and girl pants on, get in your car, drive to the nearest bank, credit union, or real estate office, and start talking to human beings. Everything else beyond that is just factory work. It's just head down grinding. If that's all you know, I'm going to recommend you scale your skill set. You expand. You add some skills that aren't required or needed in this current market, because the ones that you've been using thus far they're not needed right now. So you might look around, well, I'm not going to become a public speaker. Okay, but you could advance your communication skills. You could grow some confidence around doing some of those things. I see so many discussions on forums of people upset because the fees are dropping and the AMCs are not accepting their bids. If your business is primarily made up of orders from AMCs, you're likely feeling the market slow down the most. I've already said it. It's not guaranteed, but the way that model is set up, it's much more difficult to build relationships within an AMC and then be guaranteed business when there is a slowdown, which is why we always recommend trying to build a business around direct relationships and constant networking. And I know some of you are going to throw up robot. Oh, in my market's different, Blaine. No, it's not. There's human beings in every market making those loans work and move. You just haven't connected with them. You just haven't networked with them. I've worked in multiple markets. I travel all around the country, speaking and teaching. I work with appraisers all around the country. Every market is similar in that regard. And that leads us to the next suggestion in this kind of market. And that's constant networking. What does constant networking mean? Well, networking is an activity that you do that builds your network. I think sometimes I say the word networking and the appraiser brains and personalities in the crowd get all freaked out because most of you don't consider yourselves natural networkers, and that's okay. Maybe it's a bad word to you. And I fully understand. Appraisers tend to skew to the introverted side of the personality profile. And therefore, you tell yourself a story and you reinforce how much you hate networking, how much you hate going to events and being around crowds. I have shared before, I'll share again. I'm not a fan of crowds and events either. But I have learned to scale my skill set. I've learned to change my views on network building once I realized just how valuable having a strong network is. I, too, like many of you, would be considered something of an extroverted introvert, in that I am more comfortable around people I know really well, close friends and family. That would be my preference. But given the choice, I would prefer to be by myself in most other situations. I work best there. I'm not lonely when I'm alone. And by the way, for clarification, introverted does not mean doesn't play well with others. Introverted does not mean shy. Introverts are simply people for whom being switched on, dealing with other people, being in crowds or at events is more emotionally draining than it is for extroverts. Extroverted people are the opposite. They are energized by being around others. They're energized by going to events and parties and networking and just generally being more outgoing. That's how they get energized. Introverts are the opposite. It takes more energy from them to do those things, but some of them can be really good. Just because you've always told yourself that you're an introvert and you hate being around groups of people does not mean that you can't also be the kind of person who can turn it on for an hour or two and meet some people that end up being great clients for you long term. Now, what can be assured is that if you never get out there and meet people, you will always be at the mercy of whatever is available to you as a relatively faceless entity to your clients and potential clients. The goal in life is to eventually be paid for who you are, not for what you do. The only way that works is when more and more people know you, when your network is expanding. When the market drops, there is no love lost for companies that stop sending you business when they only know you as a number on a rotation. And if you've done nothing to make yourself known to your market, your clients and your customers, and the universe of potential clients and customers, what could you possibly expect from them when they themselves have less business to give to the market? Who are they giving that business to? Well, they're giving it to those they know, like, and trust the most, and most likely have some kind of relationship with. I've talked about the top of the pyramid. When things slow down, the top of the pyramid is still getting relatively the same amount of business. It's everybody at the bottom levels, the mid to bottom levels of the pyramid, that suffer the most. If you're not building relationships with people and then expanding the number of people you're building relationships with, well, I feel only slightly bad in saying this, but you're simply a vendor of services that can be jettisoned when it's not beneficial or convenient to keep working with you. You are a commodity. The vast majority of appraisers in the market today have done nothing to separate themselves from the competitive market of other providers of the same services. Oh, Blaine, we changed our logo last year. Yeah, that doesn't do shit. Nobody cares about your logo. If you're not known in your market beyond your name, people aren't sending you business. Nobody knows what you look like, what you sound like, what your thoughts and opinions are, and who you are as a human being, because you've made no offer to get out of the office, no effort to go out into your market and make yourself known. An apt analogy for this point, by the way, is the difference between, say, vitamins and a prescription from a doctor. The vast majority of service providers in most markets are the equivalent of vitamins in that they're convenient to have, they're good when things are hectic and busy, but they're a luxury. We all know we should take our vitamins, but how many days go by you forget? They're a luxury. They're not required. You don't need them to live. Nobody has prescribed them to you. They're just there when you think about them. A prescription, on the other hand, a prescription from a doctor is completely different in that there is some authority there. There is typically some urgency and importance around a prescription. Not everyone can have that thing. It's only for you. You can't get it over the counter. It's exclusive, and it's usually something people either can't or don't want to live without. So are you vitamins or are you a prescription? Are you needed and value added to your clients, buy into your clients and customers? Or are you just a nice convenience when they need you or when they think about you? Which one? Now, the next suggestion I have for you in this market is to increase your confidence in the non-lending side of the appraisal work. I know not everybody wants to venture into this, but for those of you who are listening and want to, everybody has hopefully heard or realized by now that lending work is not the only work available for and to appraisers. We develop opinions of value on real estate, and real estate is involved in lots of transactions that don't involve lending or a loan. Most divorces where a home is jointly owned will need an appraisal. Retrospective appraisals for tax purposes, date of death, setting up and settling an estate, financial planning, tax appeals, pre-listing appraisals, cash sales, where no loan is needed. Somebody's buying a house for cash, but they still want an appraisal. For sale by owner. People call up and say, we're thinking of putting our house for sale by owner. We want to know market value. Measurement services to agents and homeowners. Many of you are expert measurement people. You know how to really whip that laser around and draw a good sketch and floor plan. Offer those services and get paid. The list goes on and on and on. All non-lending. And within each of those specific needs, by the way, are a host of different products available to you as a licensed appraiser. My office does a crazy amount of desktop appraisals for non-lending work. Those of you who are freaking out by the word desktop, it's not for lending work. Desktop appraisals for non-lending work. This is where you send out a link from, say, Alamode Total, it's built right in, or ANOW, for those of you who use ANOW. You send it out to the client so that they can open it up on their cell phone and they can take all the exterior and interior photos of their home, and then they can fill in some questions about updates and condition and quality and amenities and so on. You never leave the office. And there's an almost endless supply of needs in every market for these services. They just don't know you exist. They have to know you exist and that you offer those things. How would they know? Many of you don't even have websites. Or you've got one of those silly Alamode Total websites, or whatever they're called, X sites, that look exactly like the other 10,000 X sites that are out there. Those do nothing for you. But folks, if you aren't researching these options for yourself, or maybe you're just not interested in doing anything other than lender work, well, then okay. I'm speaking to those who are looking to diversify their business mix and not be so dependent on the lending and interest rate environment. This happened to us 10 plus years, 12, 13 years ago now, where I was naive to that. And then finally, when our business was hit in 08, 09, we realized, we have to diversify. So for those already throwing up objections to doing some of the private work, all I can say is that it isn't for everyone. I get it. One of the most appealing things about doing appraisals for lending work is that in good, steady markets, the business is fairly steady with very little work. I mean, very little networking. All you have to do to keep them happy is workflow compliance stuff. Make sure you communicate through the portal. Make sure you update them when the appraisal's scheduled, when it's been inspected, and get it in on time. Get your revisions done on time. You don't have to butter anybody up. You don't have to do happy hours. You don't have to send thank you cards. And most of you, you're just not wired that way anyway. So you go for the lowest hanging easy fruit. I get it. But those who go for lowest hanging easy fruit will suffer the most when times are lean, like now. There is definitely more work involved with building up and maintaining a non-lending appraisal business, and a lot of you just aren't up for that work. But there are also what I consider to be commensurate benefits for having that type of business. The non-lender side of the business, of the appraisal business, tends to not have strict deadlines. Yes, sometimes somebody needs an appraisal by a specific date. A lot of divorce work. They got mediation coming up in a week or two. But rarely is it, we need this in 4 days. Sometimes, then there's a premium around that. But rarely do they need it by a specific date that's within the next week. You don't have anybody hounding you every day for an update. We charge 25% to 100% more than our lending appraisal fees for non-lending work, depending on the need and the client. The work is paid up front, so cash flow is fantastic. There's no waiting around for 10, 20, 30, or 60 days for a check. Now, granted, it's not a steady flow of business from one client like it can be with lending work, but it's steady in the sense that when it's built correctly, it flows in all year long in every market and interest rate environment. Of course, we do see some variability between good times and not so good times, but it's that in good times, there is a steady flow of all kinds of non-lending work. And in not so good times, there is an outsized amount of things like divorce work, since difficult times tend to influence the dissolution of marriages more than in good times. So in good times, the work is good, and in bad times, the work is even better on the non-lending side. Now, of course, with non-lender work, there can be a little more hand-holding and explaining so that they understand the report, but there are no revision requests. There's no underwriting reports. There's no upset agents or loan officers. And even with a potentially upset client, well, you can talk with them. There's no rules there. It's your client. You can talk with them about every aspect of the report. You can explain everything so that they fully understand what's going on. And I highly recommend you do that. The bigger percentage of my own appraisal company business is, yes, still lending work. But the non-lender side of our business most definitely smooths out the highs and the lows of the lending side of things and is simply part of a wise diversification plan, in my opinion. Again, some of you might disagree. Nope, it's only lending work for me, Blaine. I get it. I already know some of the objections to doing non-lender appraisal work because I hear it all the time. I don't want to have to go to court, Blaine. I don't like dealing with angry couples going through a divorce. I don't like. It's not easy. There's not enough to go around. Look, nobody is telling you to do something you don't want to do. If you don't want to do divorce appraisals for all of those reasons, don't do them. There is still a long list of reasons people need appraisals outside of the lending needs that the vast majority of appraisers serve. My suggestion was simply to explore your options and increase your confidence in doing non-lender work if you want to diversify. Avoid having to maybe get a part-time job during these times, or worse, close your business completely. Scale your skill set. It does definitely take some time to build up the non-lender side of your appraisal business, and it takes effort as well. You have to be willing to do several things in order to get that business flowing in. And one of those things is becoming known in your market to some degree. In fact, I'd say there are about 5 things you need to do to start getting non-lender work for your appraisal business. From having a decent web presence and good SEO, that's search engine optimization, just basic. You don't have to be a pro. You can pay somebody to do it all. You got to get good at getting good Google reviews. You have to have a decent follow-up system for what we call the after appraisal care. I mean, it's just some kind of follow-up using BombBomb to send a video, using Loom to create screen capture videos, going through the appraisal for clients, whatever it is. You have to have a good network of realtors, lenders, and past clients who can refer you for that kind of work. And doing so is the minimum, in my opinion, minimum cost for entry into that market. It's about your network. And if you're not willing to do any of those things, well, then you can't expect to have anything show up on your doorstep in that regard. You are stuck with what you have or don't have on the lending side of the business. Now, on a side note, another shameless plug, if you have any interest whatsoever in developing the non-lender side of your appraisal business, we have built a course and a coaching program for that very thing. And I'm not trying to sell you anything because that course and membership community is currently full and closed. But we've had people reach out and ask us about it. So if you want to get on that waiting list, just email me at blaine@realvaluegroup.com. Let me know you'd like to be added to the wait list for the next opening of that course, of that community of people all doing the same thing. And we will notify you when we open it back up. We're adding some new modules to it as well. We're kind of updating that whole process. So the next version is going to be even better than the last one. And of course, as is always our policy, all the past members always get any new updates to that course. The bottom line is that nobody, my friends, is coming to save you. You aren't owed anything by anybody, especially not the market. The market, your clients and customers, even the really good ones, they don't owe you anything. It's always up to you and me to hustle each and every day to build moats around our business to ensure our own survival. I am always looking for ways to create backup plans and diversification of my business, which includes, of course, multiple streams within the same business, non-lending, lending, measurement services. Those are multiple streams within the business, as well as multiple streams of income from non-related businesses and industries, which we've talked about many times. If it is to be, it is up to me. That's the mantra, friends. The harvest season is over. It is now seed planting season. What are you going to do to plant seeds for the next harvest? Until next week, I'm out.